Today we observe a ceremony where Brigadier General Scott Durham assumes command of Headquarters 4th Air Force. Presiding over today's ceremony is Lieutenant General John Healy, Chief, Air Force Reserve, and Commander, Air Force Reserve Command. We would now like to recognize special guests and distinguished visitors. Please hold all applause till all have been introduced. Brigadier General Durham's wife, Mrs. Jennifer Durham, Major General Kenneth Council, Mobilization Assistant to the Commander, Air Mobility Command, and Mrs. Council. Chief Master Sergeant Timothy White, Command Chief Master Sergeant, Air Force Reserve Command. Colonel Corey Reed, Commander, 452nd Air Mobility Wing, and Mrs. Reed. Chief Master Sergeant Octavio Ortiz, Command Chief Master Sergeant, 452nd Air Mobility Wing, and Mrs. Dawn Perez. The Honorable Michael Vargas, Mayor of the City of Paris. The Honorable El Delgado, Mayor Pro Tem and Council Member Ulysses Cabrera of the City of Moreno Valley. Council Member Chuck Conder, City of Riverside. Mr. Jeff Van Wagenen, Executive Officer from the County of Riverside. Ms. Clara Miramontes, City Manager from the City of Paris. Mr. Robert Field, City Manager from the City of San Bernardino. From the Greater Riverside Chambers of Commerce, Mr. Nicholas Adcock, Vice President, and Mr. Jamil Dada, Chairman of the Military Affairs Council. In addition, we welcome all other commanders, directors, chiefs, and community leaders who have joined us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of ruffles and flourishes, singing of our national anthem, and the invocation.
And armed.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Port arms.
Please join me for prayer. God of creation, we thank you for this day and for the ceremony. The ceremony is short and the words are few, but the authority and the command is huge, and the responsibilities are endless. We pray, God, that you will have guidance for General Durham as he assumes command of the 4th Air Force. We ask that you bless him and give his family the understanding of the long hours and the demanding weekends. And as he assumes command, may you give him wisdom of Solomon and that listening ear of Deborah the prophet. And give him the courage of David when he is making decisions. And when he feels tired and run down, may you give him the strength of Samson to endure the daily challenges. This new position will have ever-changing demands placed upon him, and there will be daily battles. But most of all, right now, God, we ask for his leadership and that you give him clarity as he takes command and leads the men and women of the 4th Air Force. Amen.
Thank you, 452nd Air Mobility Wing Honor Guard, Staff Sergeant Carbunco, and Chaplain Hunt. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, General Healy.
All right, good morning, everybody. Lovely, sunny Southern California was what I was promised. So yesterday we were in Georgia in the midst of a few days of meetings, and about 8 in the morning we had scheduled to depart at 2 o'clock. They'd come in and said, "Hey, it's likely we're going to have to divert. We're not going to make it. There's a hurricane hitting the Southern California coast." And okay, we'll see what happens. It's a long way off. But then, unfortunately, I said something to the like of, well, if we have to divert into Nellis and Vegas, I've got a chief with me, we've got a flag, we'll get some Facebook posts and we'll call it a weekend. And yeah, the staff spun out of control on that one. So my wife tells me not to be sarcastic, so another lesson learned. But I am truly honored to be here today to take place in the 4th Air Force assumption of command now. So as you all know, I recently took command of the reserves 5 weeks ago. So it's been a busy 5 weeks. And what I did right away was try to set out some very clear and defined priorities and strategic way forward. Ready now, transforming for the future. Those are my priorities going forward. In support of these 2 priorities, I issued a task order right away, trying to give every airman, all the way up to every single leader within the Air Force Reserve Command, a defined set of tasks and specific deliverables and expectations. It's about accountability. It's a task order at the foundation of all the things that we're going to do to try to reform and continue to move forward. All airmen in the audience today should recognize the task order specified role that they're responsible for carrying out. And we're not talking rocket science here. We're really not. This is the basic blocking and tackling of what you're supposed to do day in and day out. This is stuff you should be doing. We're just making sure that we're putting it on paper and we're holding each other accountable to getting that moving forward. Plainly stated, airmen at all levels must understand their role to achieve mission success. 4th Air Force plays a key part in implementing my strategic priorities and accomplishing the tasks outlined. As the nation's foremost strategic mobility total force partner, 4th Air Force has demonstrated their importance time and time again. Over the past 2 years specifically, delivering air power when called upon to support multiple crises and challenges. The role of 4th Air Force, the commander, has proven extremely important to the success of the MAGCOM, navigating all of these challenges. As you know, General Pennington departed back in August. I basically moved General Berger from the deputy at the Reserve Command up north to be my deputy at the Pentagon, and I moved General Pennington over to fill in there. Mike Moding has done a fantastic job filling the gap in the meantime. Thankfully, he never called me once. So. But today, I'm also here to introduce your new commander, General Derin. I've never called you Derin. No one does. General Bull Durham, so we're excited to have him here as well. few minutes just to give a little bit about him. First of all, his family. Jennifer, fantastic seeing you here. It's recently celebrated 32 years, just last month. So, so as a wedding gift, he sold his house and moved across the country. So sorry about that. But 21 PCSs in 32 years of marriage. That's active duty like. So congratulations on that. Kathy sends her best as well. She understands and thanks. We both thank you for all the sacrifices that you and your family make in order to ensure that Bull has a successful career. Both Bull and Jennifer have raised 3 wonderful kids. Hopefully they have the ability to watch online today as well. Daughter Savannah and husband Josh is a lawyer in Pennsylvania with their son Oliver. Sarah's working on her doctorate in physical therapy in South Carolina. And son Tucker, I had the fortune of having dinner with a couple nights ago in Warner Robins. He just graduated from Syracuse. Unbeknownst to me, my daughter as well. They were in the same 4 years at the same time. It's a big school though. Yeah, didn't recognize each other. He's working as an aerospace engineer at Robinson right now as well. So for all of our civic leaders, thank you for coming as well. We certainly recognize what a critical part you are to 4th Air Force and the 452nd. To our distinguished, to the Chief, wonderful to have you come out here. I know this is like going home every time. To Major General Counsel and Dorian, couldn't be happier as always to see you here. To say a little bit about General Pennington first, I want to make sure to acknowledge all the things that he's done and what 4th Air Force has been able to accomplish under his leadership. He served April of 2020, 2020 through August of 22, with a little typo. By this account, he served for 22 years. So, but during these 2 years, it was nothing less than how many crises and emergencies and so forth. We worked originally side by side. When he took over 4th Air Force, I was the 22nd Air Force commander, and we worked great as a team together, working off each other. That's why I was so excited to bring him on and keep part of that teamwork, so to speak, down at the command and being my right-hand man, working the day-to-day operations down there. He excelled in leading efforts to deliver ready forces. That was his job, and he excelled at it. I asked him yesterday before I was wheels up for Robinson, just send me a couple notes on if there's anything that he could have laid out. Granted, he probably would have done a rap for his outgoing speech. But if there was any notes or anything that he would have pointed out. So he sent me some stuff, and first and foremost, he wanted to thank Chief Villa for the outstanding teamwork and leadership that she provided during his tenure. Day one in the seat, so the day he took command was when COVID was starting to really hit its height, and that day they deployed medical techs to New York City, the hardest hit areas of New York City. So that was a welcome to the job. He references the relentless support of the nation's nuclear force, and specifically, through the KC-135 mission, Niagara conversion and their upcoming NORI, Beale and Neris, and the 452nd as well. How hard a push it is to maintain the C5 FTU and keep that operating and working. It's a challenge that they were dealing with all the time. Couldn't be more proud of the way 4th Air Force stepped up and led the Department of Defense for Operation Allied Refuge. Thousands of lives saved in Afghanistan. 36 airplanes went out the door from 4th Air Force. KC-10s, C-17, C-5s. We had 88 air crew, and they were the epitome of get the job done, save lives. It was fantastic. He would have, he said, essentially, I'd be here until Tuesday if he gave me everybody on the 4th Air Force staff and their ability to lean forward and get after problem solving as opposed to just doing the work. He couldn't be more appreciative of everything that 4th Air Force has done in order to further the NAF and specifically take care of the wings and the direct reports within 4th Air Force. And lastly, he wanted to thank the March community, military affairs community, local chamber of commerce, elected officials, and of course, Mr. Dada as well. So his tremendous thanks from General Pennington. He did a great job here. So obviously, General Durham's got some rather large shoes to fill. As all of you know, 4th Air Force is tasked with the strategic mobility and operates our heavy airlift and our tanker fleet. It's our largest numbered air force, home to 28,000 plus citizen airmen, which is about 40% of the total manpower for the Air Force Reserve Command. 4th Air Force is comprised of 18 wings, 2 of which are unit-equipped active associations, as is here, meaning the active component actually flies our tails, as opposed to the normal construct where we roll in on the reserve. Simply stated, this is a huge mission with tons of responsibility. There's no one more qualified to take command of this fantastic NAV. Bull comes with a wealth of experience gained over a 30-year career, and he's a proven leader. He summarizes his approach to any job as a leader by simply saying, take care of the airmen, and the airmen will take care of the mission. He first joined in 1990 after graduating from the Military College of South Carolina, also known as the Citadel, and waited to try to get a pilot slot, was being routed into air traffic control when, go figure, anybody our age, and there's 3 of us in the room that it's our age now, I remember that time. People were losing pilot slots and they were becoming air traffic controllers. And then a year later, we're short on pilots and they missed the boat. So timing was everything in that time. So the fact that it worked out was wonderful. He became a pilot, spent 13 years on active duty. But as probably everybody in this room who did that, they looked at what was being offered and available in terms of a career path and family path on active duty, and it didn't necessarily sync up with what they wanted to do out of raising a family. So the choice was made, and he joined the reserves, and he and Jennifer moved to Robbins as their first job as an ART. Great decision for the reserves and great decision for the Durhams. He has served in leadership positions as an ART in the unit, group, wing positions, and now he gets to step up to NAP as well, and continuously during that time operating in the C-17 and the C-5. So with that, I expect you're going to get 135 checked out here as opposed to C-17. So he's had over 30 years in the airlift community, which is critical. I can't think of anyone more qualified to hop in as the commander. In addition to serving as the wing commander at Westover and Dover, he also served in an interesting position as the senior executive officer to the Chief of the Air Force Reserve. And he still stayed in. So anyway, we can ask my exec now too, how long he's going to stay after this. But most recently, though, what he did, it's not listed as one of the command positions, but he was the director of operations for the entire Air Force Reserve Command, it's the Air Force, it's 20% of the Air Force, every single mission set, and he was responsible for the execution of that mission. Unbelievable responsibility. Bull and I have known each other for 24 years, and I know he would tell you that if the Air Force offers you something, think hard, think long before you turn down an opportunity. There's tons of opportunities out there in the Air Force and the Reserve. He'd tell you that every move that he's had has turned out to be an extremely beneficial and fun experience, and I have no doubt that at the end of this tenure that you're going to be saying the same thing. You assume, like I said, command of Air Force Reserve's largest NAF today. Know that your actions will affect everything else in the command. You will sway the way the command works based on how you act. Focus on the fundamentals and take care of the basic things always before some larger problem arises again. Strive to keep the interesting and fun and value added for all of our citizen airmen. I expect you to continue to do the same things that got you here. Your leadership qualities of openness, transparency, and patience, along with the equal application of rules, will continue to serve you well as advancing our strategic priorities of readiness and transformation. You understand the mission and the importance in taking care of airmen to support the warfighter. Your dedication, hard work, and humility, lessons you learned from your family long ago, will continue to serve you well. I'm excited to do this, so let's get on with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Assumption of Command ceremony.
Publish the order.
Attention orders. Department of the Air Force, Brigadier General Derin S. Durham is assigned as Commander, Headquarters 4th Air Force, effective 10 September 2022.
Sir, I assume command.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. It is my pleasure to introduce the Commander, Headquarters 4th Air Force, Brigadier General Scott Durham.
Yeah, I wasn't nervous about this until I heard the preacher pray. And it does something to you when somebody's talking to God, asking for, for his help and what I'm going to do in the future. And I didn't realize all the long hours and the weekends I was going to have to work until that point. So, well, you didn't tell me about that, sir. There's still no overtime policy in the command, right? Yeah, okay. Whew. I like to think that I'm a man of few words. And so I have a few words for you here today. The first one is thanks, mission, and focus. Those are really the three things I want to say. General Healy's already challenged me to 23 minutes, and he took 19 of them. So this is going to be quick. I appreciate the uniqueness and the history of this location. I like the way it feels. I like the closeness of it, and the quaintness of the size of the group here. With our civic leaders, and the folks here on the team from 4th Air Force and those from the wing that can make it, appreciate you being here. And so I want to say thanks, first to the Creator above, from whom all blessings flow. And I have been blessed. And the reason I've been blessed is because of Miss Jennifer there. So 32 years, she's hung in there, been great. Always willing to move. Always excited about the next adventure, and that carried over to the kids. And so they were always willing to move and ready to go as well. So to Savannah, Sarah, and Tucker, if you're listening out there, thank you for being great offspring and carrying on the tradition and moving out for the Durham team. And that's what we've always talked about, was teamwork with the Durhams. And that's the way we kind of have approached this career so far, is building the team and doing the things that we need to do to be successful. I base a lot of that on my family. Obviously, mom and dad are still out there. They're still plugging along, and so appreciate, and I want to say thanks to them as well. Thank you again to the elected officials, those appointed, those elected, those that volunteer, like Jamil. I mean, the sacrifice that you give for your community is apparent, and it's much appreciated. So thank you for being here and supporting us, and I look forward to getting to know you over the next couple of years. And doing great things for the greater Riverside community and March Air Reserve Base. Thanks to the team here at March. Man, this was no easy feat, obviously, to get done. This was all on a fairly compressed timeline, so thanks to the staff. Thanks, Mike, for stepping in for me and carrying the water, and thanks to everybody that made this happen. And it's a great experience for me. I was telling the chief earlier, the last time I assumed command, the chief passed out. So I appreciate him hanging in there so far. Hey, if you need to take a knee, just do what you need to do over there, Chief. So Chief Nunez and I think we'll be a great team for the future and work together to serve our 4th Air Force Airmen. And that's really that's what it's all about. Lastly, I want to thank some of the great leaders that have come before me. Because without them, obviously, I would not be here. General Healy, obviously, thank you for having the faith in appointing me as the 4th Air Force Commander. I appreciate that, along with General Scobie, who I've known for many years as well, who had enough faith in me to let me be the Director of Operations in A3 at the headquarters. General Pennington said, hey, this will be the best job you've ever had. And I said, I don't know, being the A3 at A4C was pretty dang good. A flying 2-star billet, you just don't get that often. And having the perspective of every NAF and every weapon system really was unique. And I really enjoyed that job, and I'm really looking forward to getting after this one. So to General Berger, General Pennington, thanks for the example that you've set and the teamwork that you've given me over the years. It's been much appreciated, and I learned a lot. To General Jackson, who I was the exec for, General Flournoy, General Ogden, General Kyle, all the NAF commanders that have come before me. I've worked for and with all of them, and I've learned a lot from them as well. So I think it's worth mentioning those generals. And then I have good friends that are in the General Corps because we're all old, like Jay Jensen, Rick Kimball, Billy Kuntz, Stacy Scarsbrick, all the GOs at the headquarters, and then my satellite friends and fellow GOs like Kenny, who he and I have been around, and I've known him as long as I've known General Healy. And we have a lot of shared experiences in the past, and have had a lot of fun on this journey, and it's been great. So thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it. And then to all my deputies that are out there. They couldn't be here today, traveling all over the country, but Bob Graham, Mitch Richardson, Howard Clark, Lee Merkel, to name a few. I think one of my strengths is the fact that I always hire people that are smarter than I am, and they tend to keep me on the straight and narrow. And while I can step back and take a wider view, those guys are always able to get after it. And so for the 3 deputies I have at AFRC, Burr, Kroll, Brink, and Andrade, those guys, they carry the water. And they're my specialists, and I trust them explicitly. And I look forward to being able to do that with the 4th Air Force staff as well. So I think that's all the thanks that I wanted to talk about. General Healy alluded to it. One of my mantras over the years has been focus. And I started out in AFRC as a major in Stanival, a C-17 Stanival, A3V, working for General Mazik, who I should also thank. It was his mentorship that set me on this path. And so every problem that I encountered, whether it was with an airplane or with a process or with an office, something fundamentally had gone wrong. Someone or something was not being done or was not working as it should. And so very early on, I figured out, hey, if you focus on the fundamentals, everything starts to fall into place after that. But if fundamentally you're missing a piece, you're just wasting your time. You're not going to get there unless you get that one fundamental thing done first, which will then help you identify the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And before you know it, there is a certain momentum that's built, and stuff just starts going right for you. And that's kind of the way I've viewed my entire life. And so far, it's worked out. It was tough. When I joined the Air Force, the first thing they told me was, thanks for volunteering. We don't need your service. You don't owe us anything. We don't owe you anything. Adios. That was tough. That was a tough pill to swallow because I had worked at the Citadel for 4 years to get there. And Jennifer and I had gotten married, and my plan, if I was not going to the Air Force, was I was going to go to law school. Well, now I've got a wife I have to support, and I can't afford law school. So that's when we went the air traffic control route. And then a few years later, they said, hey, on second thought, we are going to need pilots. We'll send you back to pilot training. And then that set me on that path. And that's when I also learned, right before we got married, they said, hey, we got a pilot training slot for you if you want to leave right now. And I said, well, I'm getting married in 2 weeks. I can't do it. I'll just go when I'm supposed to go. Well, I turned down what the Air Force offered me, and it worked out because I'm still married. But because of that, I had to wait an extra 4 years to go to pilot training. So I learned my lesson there. And ever since then, every time they've offered me something, I pretty much have accepted it. And it's worked out for me and continues to. So focus on the fundamentals. What's fundamental to a reservist is time. The time spent here, the time spent away from your employer, and the time spent away from your family. And so fundamentally, if you're spending time here with me doing the mission of the Air Force and the Air Force Reserve, I want it to be value added, both for you and for the nation. Because ultimately, that's what we're here to do, is provide readiness, strategic depth with operational capability for the nation. And so my promise to you, reservist out there, is to honor your time. And if you think that I'm not honoring your time, I need to know about it. Because fundamentally, I have failed to do something that needs to be done. And it may not be an easy solution, and we may not be able to solve it overnight, like paying your travel vouchers or closing out your orders in a timely fashion, but we're going to get after it. And we're going to continue to shine the light on it and focus on that mission. And so, speaking of mission, the last thing I want to talk about is what my mission is. And if you haven't read the task board, General Healy has made it pretty simple and pretty fundamental and pretty clear. what he expects and what the nation expects us to do as a warfighting entity. And so on the flight out here, I was reading the task order again. Actually, I had 2 copies of it, so my entire speech is written on the back page of the task order. But you know what? I was like, this is kind of like an oath of office. And so as I read through what was expected of the NAF, this is my mission. And my promise to General Healy and my promise to 4th Air Force. I will make informed resourcing decisions, and I will balance risk across wings and mission areas. I will deliver critical resources at the time and speed of need. I will ensure 4th Air Force wings produce detailed annual wing training, manning, and financial plans. And I and my staff will validate the readiness of all our subordinate units. These are the things I promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigadier General Durham. The men and women of the Headquarters 4th Air Force would like to welcome Brigadier General and Mrs. Durham to the 4th Air Force family. Go forth and conquer. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the playing of the Air Force song and remain standing for the departure of the official party. The lyrics can be found on the back of your program. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. Please join us for light refreshments at the Hap Arnold House. Thank you for attending.